chart. I
might
get the
help.
chart since
And
Saturday.
all the readers are up here, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which way do we put it on? Which way does it
I have to face him anyway.
With the picture, we'll see the picture out here. Don't know. See
No,
the
that's
picture.
right, yeah.
I have two
Camera.
friends who met on
Camera.
Sunday.
All right.
One is
so-
deaf in the right ear and one
Yeah.
is blind in the left eye. And I have two friends who sit next to each
Yeah.
other in the church on
Yeah,
Sunday.
let's have a look, see, I'll put it up here.
One is deaf in one ear, one is blind in one eye.
Higher,
Yeah.
this way.
And they didn't realise that one either had was deaf or not. And they said, look, we can do it together. You do
No,
my looking
no,
and
it's
I'll do your
unscrewing
listening,
it.
you know?
I'm tilting it. I'll bring it up onto the books and just say,
Cooperative learning.
sorry Elizabeth, can I just squeeze in by you? Just move the chair for a minute and we just see if this is positioned right.
That's right. Here, those two books here to know
Yeah.
better. What's your teeth? Who's nose?
I never put on the aftershare, don't you?
He didn't tell me there was a smell
Georgia.
centre.
You miss a net for all those things now, telling you all that.
I'd have to go more.
Right.
No, that actually takes it off. Yeah,
How does it
thank you.
rise it? How does it rise it? Another book, please.
Another new one.
Another book,
Just to
please.
borrow for
Yeah. Thanks. Keep going up. Another one. Another two, please. Another two, please.
Yeah, because it actually needs to go up there.
Is there no, can this not probably, can this not rise?
No, I don't know because
That's it. Teacher's singing as well. Another two books, please.
Are you joking?
Yeah, we have to keep going with this. till we get
so you can link to the
that
database.
highest phase.
no, I don't think that's not.
These all these.
When do you know?
Oh.
Get the height of it.
I said, just when we said that, I said that's the height of it.
Really?
Yeah, because that's taking it off. That's actually,
Yeah.
Disconnected.
yeah,
It's not
That's the
this.
height of it there.
okay.
Do we use that phrase? That's the height of it now.
And you have to get
Let's go, let's move it back.
To shimmy down a bit.
another two.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
jump back.
That's the height of it now.
You say testing, testing.
No, wait.
Is there more?
Oh, there must be.
There's one down there. Can I have your book, Nina?
We're just discussing, has anybody any advice on presidential candidates to vote for it?
No.
I'm gonna
We
go
need
for the
another.
Christian anyway.
Well, maybe the box now. Oh,
There you go.
let's try the
Just
whole
one.
box.
That's right.
The whole box and nothing but the box.
Maybe you could take one or two off.
Yeah.
Might do the box.
How am I going to see Mary?
Oh, look, oh,
How am I going to
perfect.
see Mary now from over here?
Hold on there now, that's a bit,
It's still
Just the
there.
box on its own.
Still low, is it?
Go
The box
again.
on its
Like
side
again.
actually might be better. You can just
no, it
barely
was
see.
fine with the two underneath it. We actually got
Yeah.
Olive Lloyd in.
All of me.
Oh, God.
Why not take all of me?
Yeah.
There you go now.
Okay,
Go again.
Stop.
Yeah.
All this
Stop
work
messing.
for getting you in.
Okay.
Stop
Is it
messing.
steady now? If he
Is
sneezes.
that straight enough?
It hasn't got the top of your head, can you?
That's, yeah, don't bring it. I can't.
Now,
That's better. That's
Shannon will go forward.
perfect.
you're perfect.
Well,
And I think
Well, picture it.
Shannon Kesh.
hopefully it's,
Shannon Ayub. Right, guys, let's begin. You're all very welcome in the name of the Father,
The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
May I enter into the eternal divine order of God to place my absolute
confidence in the heart of the most holy
Trinity.
To give to my God the joy of fulfilling the purpose of my existence by doing all the acts of my life through the Immaculate Heart of my Mother Mary and in the divine will of God. And in the same manner may I live, pray, act, eat, walk, sleep, and do everything. May my soul be devoid of any other longings, wants, or desires. And may you, my beloved divine will, do with me whatever you want or desire. All I ask is that I may meet your most holy will so intimately that I may never swerve from carrying out what I know to be your good pleasure, and that I remain so docile to the movements of your divine will, that you never perceive even a breath of resistance in my soul to your requests of me. Come, divine will, with all the angels and saints, especially my sweet Mother Mary, to touch my forehead, to imprint on it the Holy Spirit, and infuse it in true light, so that I may understand the truth and goods that bring me rising and the earth. Amen.
And let's just pause for a moment if you don't mind. This is for all of us, just to pause in our nothingness and enjoy our nothingness and have the Lord bless our nothingness, because we have just entered the greatest miracle in creation. It's bigger than the healing of the blind, of the lame, and of all the other healings. We have just entered the divine will, and that is the greatest miracle in the whole of creation. So we are now miraculous. Jesus, take me as I am. I can come no other way. Take me deeper into you. Make my flesh life melt away. Make me like a precious stone, crystal clear and finely honed. The light of Jesus shining through, giving glory back to you. I think that prayer resonates beautifully with the divine word. Now I'm going to take a slight different approach this evening. It will echo what we were doing last weekend. So there are readers going to take up the reading of the different dates. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to, let's say, the first paragraphs, and I'm going to explore the questions that lie therein. And then I'm going to take a paragraph in the same reference, and I'm going to hand over to a group just to come up with some questions. And I'm going to show you that the answers are there. This is not anything tricky or anything to catch anybody out. The answers are on the page. You know, it's like going into the exam, the answers are there. I tell the boys when they're going in to do comprehensions, the answers are there. All you must do is read them. In the oral, the answers are on the CD. All you have to do is hear them. So there's nothing catchy or tricky in this. And Imelda's taken up the first reading of the 27th of October, 1921. Yeah. Ashton, would you mind? Just be keen to go with on Doris fi glas to the hull. That's for our UK people. The focal grade. Yeah. Touch of the glass. Okay, Imelda.
The divine will must be like the soul to the body. I was saying to my beloved Jesus, it has been a long time since you placed me inside of you. I would feel safer, and I could share more in your divinity, as if the earth did not belong to me, and heaven were my dwelling. How many tears did I not have to shed when your volition would put me out? The mere sensing the air of the earth was an unbearable weight for me. But your will would win, and I, bowing my forehead, would resign myself. Now, I feel that you are always inside of me, and when I become delirious for seeing you, by just moving in my interior, or by putting out an arm, you calm me and give me life. Tell me, what is the reason? And Jesus said, my daughter, it is fair, after I carried you in my interior for my whole life, that your duty be to carry me in your interior for your whole life. If I placed you in my interior, it was in order to perfume your soul and to extend a new heaven within you, so as to render it a worthy dwelling for my person. It is true that you felt safer and that joys poured down upon you, but the earth is not a place of delights. Its inheritance is pain, and the cross is the bread of the strong. More so, since I had to establish the centre of my will in you, and therefore it was necessary that my will live in you and serve you as the soul to the body. My will could never descend into the soul in a singular way and outside of the ordinary if you did not have our distinct prerogatives. The same with my mother. I, eternal Word, could not have descended into her if she did not have her distinct prerogatives, and the divine breath had not breathed into her and into a new creation, to the point of rendering her admirable to all and superior to all created things. The same with you. First, my humanity wanted to have its stable dwelling in you, in order to prepare you, and now it is giving you the life of my will, like the soul to the body.
And can I stop you there? So, please, Imelda, thank you very much. You read beautifully. I'm going to stop there, and I want to just show you, if what we're after reading are all the answers to the following questions. So the second paragraph is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the teachings of Jesus. That starts off with, my daughter, it is fair after I carried you in my interior for my whole life. So here's a simple question coming from that very area there, that first sentence. Why is it our duty to carry Jesus our whole life? Can you find the answer? It's on the page. Anybody want to offer the answer?
Jesus carried us for his whole life.
Because Jesus carried us for his whole life. So it's our duty. Second question. What are the fruits and graces of being in Jesus' interior? There should be 4 parts to this answer. Can you see them there? What are the fruits or the graces of being in Jesus' interior? Just scan back over it and find the answer. Anybody in the bottom table there can tell me.
Perfume for your soul,
Well done.
to extend a new heaven within you,
Well done.
so as to render it a worthy dwelling for my person.
Well done. Is there a 4th there?
And that's safer.
Safer, that you safer, that the joy is poured down upon you. You see how straightforward it is? Here's a third question. How have we inherited pain? Now, that's the answer probably is not there, but I'm wondering, from our reading and our studying, and maybe from the hours or whatever, wherever you can get your answer, why is Jesus saying that, but the earth is not a place of delights, its inheritance is pain? Is there anything that resonates with this for you?
Original sin. Yeah.
Okay, original sin. So therefore, Marguerite, just take it a step further.
Due to original sin, we inherited pain because of, as Adam
Correct. Okay.
received pain.
Okay.
from
And
going out of the
therefore,
divine will.
I'm just looking for another verb now that's going to be important to answer this. Yeah.
I was maybe
Yeah.
thinking beyond it, I don't know. Jesus suffered and died on the cross for us. The cross is the way, so
Okay.
Jesus suffered, so we have to suffer.
Okay.
That's the way to Jesus.
Right. Okay. Anybody else have any other additions?
That our human will is the opposite to God's will, to divine will, so therefore we're in conflict.
Okay.
The human will is in conflict.
Okay.
And that's
And do
painful.
And do you remember
To minister
to minister to Noah?
his wounded heart.
Yeah.
To minister to his wounded heart. And sorry,
Because the void hasn't been filled.
because the void hasn't been filled. Say some more to me about that. Fill that up for me.
Jesus Christ, he died on the cross for all of us, right? So we have to make reparation.
Okay.
So until that reparation is made, to the
Yes.
extent of all our sins which he took on the cross,
Okay.
which is the aim of the divine
Okay.
will,
Well done.
the void, there's a whole empty void there,
Okay.
and that's what the idea of the
So
divine
there's
will
an
is to
empty
fill.
void there. I'm just saying this for the people in the UK because they can't hear you, Kathy, properly. And yes, we're being recorded here every week and it's going out it's being shared, you see. So when we're speaking from the back table there, it's always a challenge. So Kathy was talking about the void that we in the divine will are called to fill and to, as somebody said, I think it was somebody down there said at the first gathering, that we do that we balance, isn't it? That our reparation is the balancing of what Christ did. And we'll also know that we speak about the Valley of Tears, don't we? And C.S. Lewis speaks about the Shadowlands. Now you're going to hear the term shadow later on as well. And a couple of weeks ago, we also came across a fantastic contrasting description of those who live in the divine will are like the sea creatures. They don't need to toil at all whereas the land creatures have to toil and work hard for their living, to survive, to scavenge, etc., etc. So toil and pain go together. So it's a struggle, and as Marguerite was saying, since the original sin started all of that for human history. What's the relationship between the divine will and the soul?
The life of the soul, is it?
Sorry?
The life of the soul.
Correct. That what the soul is to the body, the divine will is to the soul. And another little question here that will take us on to the page 21. How was Mary capable of being a dwelling place for Jesus, the eternal Word?
She was in the divine will. She was
Okay, now the answer is there right in front of us, yeah. She lived in the divine will. She was completely and utterly fused with the divine will, so therefore she was worthy. The same with my mother, he says. I, eternal Word, could not have descended into her if she did not have her distinct prerogatives, and the divine breath had not breathed into her as into a new creation, to the point of rendering her admirable to all and superior to all created things. The same with you. First, my humanity wanted to have its stable dwelling in you in order to prepare you. Isn't that a lovely phrase? The stable dwelling. So we are the crib for Christ, aren't we? And you'll see this later on. And every time we do this, we're going to be multiplying Jesus. And now it is, and I'm reading back on that top page again, and now it is giving you the life of my word, like the soul to the body. So Emilla's going to read on now there.
You must know that my will must be like the soul to the body. See, this happens also within us, the three divine persons. Our love is great, infinite, and eternal. But if we did not have a will that animates and gives life to this love, our love would be without life, without works. Our wisdom gives of the incredible. Our power can crush everything in 1 minute, and in another minute it can redo everything. But if we did not have a will that wanted to manifest the mastery of our wisdom, as it manifested it in the creation, in which it ordered and harmonized everything, and with its power it made it fixed in such way that it cannot move one bit, both wisdom and power would have had nothing to do, and so was all the rest of our attributes.
And I'm going to stop you there. We'll just use that. I'm going to leave it with you, Imelda. We're just going to now use that, and I'm going to ask Imelda and this table here, what logical, fundamental questions come off that paragraph for which this same paragraph is the answer to? Let's formulate questions for this answer here.
As we give life to the divine will.
No, okay, so we're going to formulate the question, turn it into a question.
Do we how do we give life to the divine will?
And the answer is?
Or through our sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we give life to the divine will? That's the question, and the answer is here.
By our love. We give life to it by our love.
Okay, where's that there now?
Without works.
Or love without life, without works.
It gives life to this love. Our love will be without life, without works.
So it is our works that give life
Yes.
to the divine will.
And look at them, even the next line, Marguerite, our wisdom also
Yes.
gives of the incredible. Our power can crush everything in 1 minute, and in another minute it can redo everything. Okay, is that amazing? Okay, is there any other question there?
So how is the in the Trinity, how is it their love is great, infinite and eternal? Sorry.
You're looking at the same paragraph, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
is that what you wanted?
And
Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
paragraph?
So
Yes.
so I want a question from you now for which the answer is right in that paragraph.
And
So the question is?
He said, how or why is their love, what makes their love great, infinite and eternal? That's in the Blessed Trinity.
Okay. Can you see the answer there? Where is it?
Their will, the
Okay.
divine will that makes it, animates and gives life to this love.
Okay. Now I can't see the Trinity, the reference to the Trinity
Oh,
there. Maybe I'm missing it.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, see how this happens with us. He said, see, this happens within us.
Okay, so you're
Yeah,
referring
the
to
three
us.
divine persons. He does say the
Well
three
done,
divine
well
persons.
done.
Yeah,
Okay, well done.
yeah.
So they're talking about our. So when the passages talk about our wisdom, it's talking about the wisdom of the
Of the
Trinity.
Trinity,
Well
yeah.
done, well done. Okay, let's move on. Thank you.
Now, in the same way, I want my will to be like the soul to the body. The body without the soul is lifeless. Even though it contains all the senses, it cannot see, nor speak, hear, work. It is almost a useless thing, and maybe even unbearable. But if the body is animated, how many things can it not do? Yet, oh, how many render themselves useless and unbearable because they are not animated by my will. They are like those electrical installations without light, like those machines without motion, covered with rust and dust, and almost impotent of motion. Ah, how pitiful they are! Each thing, like the soul, each thing which is animated by
Which is
my
not,
will.
which is
Oh,
not.
sorry.
Yeah, which is not animated.
Each thing which is not animated by my will is a life of sanctity that is missing. This is why I want to be in you like the soul to the body, and my will make new surprises of creations. It will give new life to my love. It will do new works. It will manifest the mastery of my wisdom. It will give new motion to my power. Therefore, be attentive and let me do, so that I may accomplish my great design, that the creature be animated by my will.
Now, isn't that a powerful and final paragraph there? And with a wonderful, wonderful teaching from the Lord about and the sadness that for him, for a soul that is not animated by his will, and losing out on all of the gifts and the duty that we mentioned earlier on to give glory to God, the great purpose for giving glory to God. He says that this is it's useless and unbearable because they are not animated by my will. And it's a pity, and how pitiful they are. And then he mentions three things that the soul that is animated will give new life to my love. It will do new works. It will manifest the mastery of my wisdom. It will give new motion to my power. And he finishes up by giving us a strong assertion. Be attentive. Let me do, so that I may accomplish my great design, that the creature be animated by my will. So our great purpose is to allow the great design to operate through us. Isn't that it? And there's a term that's used, it's the name of a film as well, Dead Man Walking. And it refers to people who are going to be executed, have the death penalty put on them. But there's also a philosophical sense to that we could literally be walking around, as I said to you last week, that the philosopher or poet Goethe in the 12th century said that the soul that sees beauty may often walk alone. And so people who don't see beauty. I had 36 boys in Glendalough yesterday, and it was a wonderful day. And Glendalough, of course, immediately you would see the vale that Glendalough is, and you would see the beauty in the water. It was a cold day, and the clouds, it was cloudy, but still the wind was something of great beauty. The cold was something of great beauty, and the river and the sparkling of the water, etc. But I took one boy aside and I said, Killian, I said, do you see what I see? He said, what, sir? Do you see the beauty in the lake here? I don't, sir. I said, you don't see the beauty in front of you here, and of all the trees and all the vegetation? He said, no. So I said, what do you see when you see the river? I just see the river, he says. You know? So I was asking other boys then in school, I was showing them the photographs, and I said, lads, what do you see here? And quite willingly, many of them said, sir, it's beautiful. So I said, thank God. So I said, now as soon as you say something like that, you go beyond science, because there's no microscope, spectrometer, and binoculars that will see beauty underneath them. It can only be seen with the eyes of the soul. Isn't that right? So to be alive, to be fully alive, is to be completely and utterly attentive and sensitive to God's presence in all of creation. And I gave you a copy of another poem. Now you all know this one by Plunkett. What's his first name? Joseph Mary Plunkett. And I just read it quickly, because this man definitely saw the transcendent and the mystery and everything. He says, everybody has a copy in it. I see his blood upon the rose, and in the stars the glory of his eyes. His body gleams amid eternal snows. His tears fall from the skies. I see his face in every flower. The thunder and the singing of the birds are but his voice, and carved in my white heart. Rocks are his written words. All pathways by his feet are worn. His strong heart stirs an ever-beating sea. His crown of thorns is twined with every thorn. His cross is every tree. So this is the beauty of our poets, and we need them to remind us that there's more to the rose, to the dandelion, to the weed, to the wind, to the trees, to the sea, than what just meets the physical eye. As Bernard Shaw said, we look at the mirror to see our faces. We look at art to see our souls. You know, and that's why we go to theatre and listen to music, etc., because there's something reflective there of our own souls. And of course, in the soul is the divine will, looking to be recognized and to be resonated and echoed in what we're seeing in front of us.
The problem is,
Yeah?
it's very difficult to kill the flies and everything else as fast as now, because everything is God's creature, and it's beautiful in its own way.
I know. It all, even the flies, you're
I
saying.
can't even clean the cobwebs with
Oh, I know. I know.
40 pages.
There you go. I'm going off this. Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, can we move on to October the
I just
29th?
have one reading for there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, good. Sorry, yeah.
And that's John, or
Imelda has
James.
one reading.
One reading
there.
on that, and that's James
And what paragraph would that go
2:16.
with, Imelda?
It's the second paragraph on page 21 there,
Okay,
and
John.
it's about James
Oh, James.
2:16. And this is how we know what love is. Christ gave his life for us. Not only is faith dead without works, God's love is dead also without the action. Sorry, let me read that last sentence again. God's love in us without action is dead.
And so it is divine will without
Yes.
love, without divine will action is dead
Absolutely.
in us.
Absolutely. Yeah, well done.
And what just came to me there was, all the people walking around with their mobile phones stuck in front of their faces,
Yes.
and they're oblivious of everybody else. They're dead men walking,
There you go.
totally
Yeah,
oblivious to
yeah, it's
anybody else.
a big issue, yeah. A big concern, rather, for us going forward. Eileen's going to take up the reading for, thanks Marguerite,
God's love
for
in us
October the
without
29th.
action is dead.
Meaning and effects of the 3 hours of imprisonment of Jesus. Now this is
Now, do I take
another,
the thing
yeah.
from my face?
It's quiet. It's battery dead.
Oh, so I have to do without it.
oh, yeah,
Plug it in.
I'll shout.
yeah, you have to shout, Eileen. So now this is a very, very powerful page here coming up, this page, and it's going into the next one. So let's just watch this very carefully.
Yeah.
But you work away.
Meaning and effects of the 3 hours of imprisonment of Jesus. I spent last night in vigil, and my mind would often fly to my Jesus, who was bound in prison. I wanted to cling to those knees which staggered for the painful and cruel position in which the enemies had tied him. I wanted to clean him of the spit with which he was smeared. But while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus, my life, made himself seen as though within thick darkness, through which I could barely see his adorable person, and sobbing, he told me, "Daughter, the enemies left me alone in prison, horribly bound and in the dark. Everything around me was thick darkness. Oh, how this darkness afflicted me. My clothes were wet from the filthy waters of the stream. I could smell the stench of the prison and of the spit with which I was smeared. My hair was dishevelled, without a pitying hand to remove it from my eyes and from my mouth. My hands were bound by chains, and the darkness did not allow me to see my state. Alas, too painful and humiliating. Oh, how many things did my state, so painful, tell of in this prison."
Well done. I just have a couple of questions here, Eileen, that I'm going to ask the group in general now. So the answers are in front of you. How is sin described here?
Darkness.
Filth, darkness,
Smell.
the smell,
Spit.
the spit, correct, dishevelled,
Yeah.
and the darkness, as somebody
Bound
said,
by chains.
bound by chains, painful, humiliating,
Waters.
correct, dishevelled. Okay, so that's
Humiliation.
Jesus is painting a picture there of the condition of sin. You know, everything during those 3 hours has significance to his knees, which staggered for the painful and the cruel position in which the enemies had tied him. Everything has significance. And the next question: what are the characteristics? Oh, sorry, we're after answering that already, I think, in that sense. Okay, why should Louisa call Jesus my life? That's 4 lines down. My sweet Jesus, my life.
He's the life of our soul. He's the life of our soul.
Is the life correct? Correct. Philippians 1:21 says of Jesus, if I'm right, in him I move and live and have my being. Right. What is the connection between Jesus' condition in prison and that of sin?
Bound, is it?
What's the connection between Jesus' condition in prison and sin?
Well, when you're in sin, you're in darkness. And
You're
you are
bound.
You're bound.
stinking.
Correct.
And chains.
Correct.
But you can't see, that's the important thing.
You can't see,
You
yes.
just don't know.
Yeah.
You can't see actually.
Can't see.
You can't see the sin.
Correct. And that's going to be a very big part, Kathy, coming into the next readings now, and the importance of the eye and seeing. As we've already said, you know, that people are not looking and not seeing. Okay, and just you can read on there, Eileen, whenever you're ready.
Yes.
I remained in prison for 3 hours. With this, I wanted to rehabilitate the 3 ages of the world, that of the law of nature, that of written law, and that of the law of grace. I wanted to release all, reuniting them all together, and to give them freedom as children of mine. By being there 3 hours, I wanted to rehabilitate the 3 ages of man: childhood, youth, and old age. I wanted to rehabilitate him when he sins out of passion, out of his will, and out of obstinacy. Oh, how the obscurity I saw around me made me feel the thick darkness which sin produces in man. Oh, how I cried over him, saying, O man, your sins have thrown me into this thick darkness, and I suffer it to give you light. It is your evils that have smeared me like this, and their darkness is such as to prevent me even from seeing them. Look at me, I am the image of your sins. If you want to know them, look at me, look at them in me.
Now that's amazing. Well read to Eileen. Now let's consider that paragraph there, and let's articulate some questions for which the answers are right in front of us.
3 ages of the word.
The 3 ages. So the question is,
What are the 3 ages?
what are the 3 ages? But there's a question that can happen before that. What's the
3 hours.
what's the significance of the 3 hours? So we're saying that Christ's passion, every single thing, everything is significant. Every single aspect. And so now the 3 hours, what's the significance of the 3 hours? Imelda is asking because it refers to the 3 ages. And there, the next question is, what are the 3 ages?
Childhood,
Word.
Law of nature.
Nature, creation, redemption, sanctification.
Now here it says, so it says that of the law of nature, that of written law, and the law of grace, isn't it? And are we right about
And
that?
they refer to creation, redemption, sanctification.
I don't know.
The law of nature.
Because the 3 is the signature of the
Okay, 3.
Trinity.
So you're saying
That maybe nature is creation,
creation,
the written law, the word coming into life,
okay,
Jesus'
incarnation,
incarnation.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
And then the law of grace, is that the Holy Spirit? Is that
okay,
the
okay, thanks for that.
sanctification?
Yeah, no, I'm just looking for, Imelda sees how this resonates with another 3, which is creation, redemption, and sanctification. Okay? But I particularly want you to find the answers right in front of you to the questions. And is there another question from that paragraph there now? Taking us on to the second page maybe.
Stages of growth.
So what are the stages of growth, is it?
Yeah.
And what's the answer?
Childhood.
Childhood, youth and old age.
It's interesting they haven't got included maturity there.
Oh, yeah, getting mature as we're moving along. And there's another 3 coming up. So what's the question for the next 3 things there? What? So what's the question? What can we?
How does man sin?
Sin.
Yeah, how does man sin?
Yeah.
Out of what does man sin?
Yeah.
He sins out. You see the important word there, out of his passion, his will, and his obstinacy. Is there another question there coming down? Just so as we come down through the paragraph, you see that these are the answers. So what are the questions? And so,
Your sons have thrown me into this darkness. So, but why did Jesus suffer?
Yeah.
So
why did
give you
Jesus
life.
suffer? In order to give you light. Yeah.
And
What did Jesus want to rehabilitate us from?
Well done. So,
Sorry, say that again?
what did Jesus want to rehabilitate us from? And so, what would the answer be, Marguerite?
From our passions,
Yeah, our will, our human will,
our human will,
and our obstinacy. Well done.
to get into his will.
Correct. Is there another question on the last couple of lines there now?
image of your sins. Yeah.
How do we see?
So, how does? I'm not going to answer. Sorry, I'm not going to ask the question. I need it to come from you. Is there a question for which the last 2 lines, or the second last line maybe, is the answer?
Jesus' passion.
Why
How
is
are
Jesus the image of our sin?
Why is Jesus the image of our sin?
In his condition at that time, he's the image because of the darkness and the prison.
And when
He was in
he was in the river.
Correct. And remember I showed you this last week. So when God the Father looks at creation, he only sees the face of Christ, because Christ is the most authentic and radical representation of the condition of the world. Isn't that it? So, and when we want to see the face of God the Father, we can look at the face of Christ to see who the Father is, who's also suffering for us, isn't it? So Jesus represents the saints and the scholars on his face, but also the lowest common denominator. And that reminds us about our duty, that we enter with Christ into this action, into this duty. This is our duty now too, that Christ needs us for. And it reminds me of the poem, I think I may have read it out to you, when I see the word duty coming up here, and the poet Louisa May Alcott says, I slept and dreamed that life was beauty. And we've already mentioned beauty. I woke up and found that life was duty.
Yeah.
Now I think any of us here who toil for a living realize, that, okay, that life is also duty. And she goes on to say, then she even uses the word toil. Toil on, sad heart, courageously, and thou shalt find thy dream to be a noonday light and truth to thee. So that resonates very, very well. So these poets are fantastic who see the insights into the mysteries of life. So, yes, and
Lloyd, what did you say? Christ is the most authentic, radical.
the most authentic and radical representation of what humanity is, of the condition that humanity is in. On the spectrum of the lowest of the lowest to the highest of the highest person who's living in the divine will, down to the person who is so far away from it. It's in that he or she is in that thick darkness that Christ wants to redeem and bring her back and bring him back. And that becomes our duty as well, and our vocation in the divine will. Very good. Okay. And Eileen's going to read on here.
Yeah.
However, know that on the last hour I spent in prison, the dawn broke, and a few glimmers of light entered through the fissures. Oh, how my heart breathed in being able to see my painful state. This signified man when, tired from the night of sin, he receives grace, which surrounds him like dawn, sending him glimmers of light to call him back. So my heart heaved a sigh of relief, and in this dawn I saw you, my beloved prisoner, whom my love was going to bind in this state, and you would not leave me alone in the darkness of the prison. Waiting for the dawn at my feet and following my sighs, you would cry with me over the night of man. This relieved me, and I offered my imprisonment to give you the grace to follow me.
Okay, just Eileen. Now, just have a look at that paragraph. I don't want you now to compose questions, but what is jumping out at you that's evoking a reaction? What words and terms are evocative for you?
When his heart breathed and being able to see his painful state, because that signified our coming out of our sin, our actually receiving the grace to be enlightened.
Okay, very good.
The glimmers of light.
The glimmers of light, yeah. Even the glimmers of light are significant. And as Dolores is saying, they would be the humble and feeble efforts to crawl out of our darkness into his light, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those glimmers of light. As the dawn, and isn't the word dawn amazing? And when you get up in the morning, go out and feed your hens, and you see the dawn coming, and you're just blown away of how quiet it is, like the dawn on high. It says in the scriptures, like the dawn, he is coming like the dawn from on high. So that's the beginning of the light, isn't it? And of the resurrection, and we're going back then to our sun. The resurrection of the sun coming from the east.
You could say that what we're doing, that a new dawn is breaking.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
A new dawn is breaking. Yeah.
And the other thing is that last hour could be a last hour of somebody's life, you know, where they get that glimmer of light.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
By
They've gone through the
mercy.
darkest
Yeah.
of the dark, and now maybe there's something
Yeah.
of hope coming through for them.
That's right.
The bit that stood out for me is that, oh, how my heart breathed in being able to see my painful state.
Yes.
This signified man, when tired from the night of sin, he receives grace. I thought that was very powerful.
Yes.
You know, we
Receiving the
get
grace.
so low down, and
Yeah.
then all of a
Yes.
sudden,
Correct. Sending him glimmers of light to call him back. And that's a constant theme right through the Old Testament return. Come back to me with all your heart. Yes, Ashley?
I like the part where it said, I saw you, my beloved prisoner, and you would not leave me alone in this darkness of the prison. So I just thought that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I really
Well
like
done.
that part, yeah.
Well spotted. The sense of aloneness, that we are filling that gap. We're getting in there, accompanying him, infusing with him. And it,
It
Kathy?
seemed to me that that was actually the birth of the divine will. That he said, the last sentence was, this relieved me, and I offered my imprisonment to give you the grace to follow me. So he offered that for Louisa, for the grace. He couldn't see her. So to me that was the birth of the divine will.
Okay,
And she was there at the time, you know.
okay. I think what's,
And for us, not for them, but the divine will for us. The grace of the divine will for us.
and I offered my imprisonment. You see, the imprisonment is a gift now. So we're converting it. And it reminds me today of a young fellow. I had up a slide, because I was showing 6 years the slides of the retreat. And when we entered the monastic site, we went just inside the entrance, and we saw one of the oldest crosses in the country. It goes back to the 6th century. And it's what they call the Charman cross. Now Ashling would know the word Charman means sanctuary, right? And so it's called the sanctuary cross. And the priest was asking us to know, who are we willing to give sanctuary to in our lives, you know? And he spoke about that we're speaking about St. Kevin for 1400 years. We're speaking about Christ for over 2000 years. And so this Kevin must have been on fire with the Christ. And we're still talking about him. He was only 16 or 17 when he went down there on his own and became a monk, etc. But the boy inside in school and then says to me, with leaning back on the chair in an Irish class, not in a religion class, he says, "What's holy about the cross anyway, sir, if Jesus died on it?" And I said, "Sean, what an amazing question." It wasn't in Irish, no, Ashley, I'm sorry for telling. But it was in the Irish class. And he leaned, he's at the back of the class because he wants to get away from me. But he threw that. Wasn't that an amazing question? Now, can we answer him in the room? Why is the cross holy? He said to me.
Because Jesus saved us by that cross.
Okay, because, okay, lovely.
So his sufferings and his blood are on that cross.
Yeah.
Which sanctifies us.
Yeah.
Without the cross, we don't enter heaven.
Correct.
No cross,
The cross is ours.
No cross, no crown.
But God the Father loved us so much that
He
he
gave
sent
us
Jesus
his only
to die on
son.
the cross.
Yeah. So can you see how we could convert the sense that the cross is something, and which was to the Romans and to the Jews at the time something phenomenally humiliating, a terrible insult, etc., and how Christ converts the thing.
And it wasn't that the cross was heavy, but that the weight of our sins on the cross was what weighed
Correct.
Jesus down. And his
Correct.
weight
And
at
you know what I
Calvary.
said to him? I said, "Sean," I said, "Christ," I said, "shed every single last drop of blood in his body on that cross and on the journey to the cross, from the scourging at the pillar." I said he was crowned 3 times, Sean, into his head. And if you've ever been playing hurling, Sean, you know that when you're split in the head, the blood flies out, as Kathy's dad would know from his hurling days. And I said, can you imagine every drop of blood for every sin of every person? I said, "Sean, your face was in Jesus' eyes when he was shedding the blood for you, and my face in his eyes, in his face, and my name. He knew my whole story as he shed blood for me." And Sean went very quiet for the rest of the class.
He sat up straight.
So what's also very, very strong there, and I just make, is the Easter candle. Because you have the glimmer of light and the whole Exultet. And I gave you a copy of the Exultet, and I sing this every Easter, and I find it a fantastic meditation as I learn it every year. It's on the same pages and I've sent these pages to England as well, to the UK, so that they can look at them as well. Can I just look down through it there ever so quickly? I don't want to be taking away from the volumes. And look at the references too. We've just said it. It's on the same sheet with the poem, just underneath it. See it there? And Jesus Christ our Lord, etc. Okay? Who for our sake paid Adam's debt to the eternal Father. So this is Sean's question being answered. You know, and pouring out his own dear blood, wiped clean the record of our ancient sinfulness. This is the night. Look at that, how, you know, when once you led our forebears, Israel's children, from slavery in Egypt, and made them pass dry shod through the Red Sea. This is the night that with a pillar of fire banished the darkness of sin. This is the night that even now throughout the world set Christian believers apart from worldly vices and from the gloom of sin, leading them to grace and joining them to his holy ones. And again, this is the night when Christ broke the prison bars of death and rose victorious from the underworld. O necessary sin of Adam, destroyed completely by the death of Christ. And again, O truly blessed night. And then the last part there, then in the middle, just that top part, this is the night of which it is written, the night shall be as bright as day, dazzling in the night for me, is the night for me, and full of gladness. And it goes on, I won't, you can read that in your own time. And maybe this Easter, really meditate on that and absorb in its wonderful, wonderful insights into the great story of our Lord on the cross and his resurrection, etc. What you also have there, and I'm not going to read it other than refer to it, you have a little chapter from this book here on John of the Cross. So the cross and the passion and John of the Cross. So his story is very, very important. And he was imprisoned himself in Toledo by his own people, I gather. And so there's beautiful, this should resonate and echo what we're reading tonight and give you a little bit of extra reading. Can you see that there, Elaine? Yeah, on those pages. So here we are. Oh, yes. Here's the book here called The Impact of God. And then you see there that the chapter is called Healing Night. And so the night is doing a lot of healing. All this passion and suffering is healing the world of its sins. Isn't it? Mm-hmm. And of course, as somebody said, many of you said, that this is also our role now. We enter into this passion with Christ in order to heal the whole of the world. All of creation is made brighter. And actually, we were looking at the word for polish today, the snos, right, that we were putting on something in Irish. And I was reminded that when we fuse, we put a snos on everything. We polish up the world, all of creation. When it's returned to Christ, it looks fantastic. Like after the house is clean from top to bottom, it looks like a far nicer house. And that's even underestimating what we will look like and what all of creation is going to look like when, through the divine will, that the whole of creation is repaired and redeemed and sanctified. Isn't it really?
How do you spell snuff?
S-N-A-S. I think, do we still use it in our local language? Yeah.
I think so,
Yeah, you put a snuff in it.
Yeah, I heard it before in English. No problem.
Exactly. Irish English.
Irish English, yeah.
Is it a dog? No.
No, I don't know. It could be used in many ways, but even the way the Irish speak English, we still have some Irish words in our vocabulary. I'm going to move on, and Eileen is reading there on the third paragraph there.
But this prison and this darkness contained another meaning. Mm-hmm. This is why my long staying in the prison of the tabernacles. This was my long staying in the prison of the tabernacles. The loneliness in which I am left, such that many times I've no one to whom to say a word, or send a gaze of love. Other times, I feel in the holy host the impressions of unworthy touches, the stench of rotten and muddy hands, and there is no one who touches me with pure hands and perfumes me with his love. And how many times human ingratitudes leave me in darkness, without even the miserable light of a lamp. Therefore, my imprisonment continues, and will still continue. And since both of us are prisoners, you, prisoner in bed, only for love of me, I, prisoner for you, with my love I want to bind all creatures with the chains that keep me bound. In this way, we will keep each other company, and you will help me to extend the chains in order to bind all hearts to my love.
Now, there's an awful lot there, and I don't want to dwell too much on it. I'm sure you'll be taking this home and reading it yourselves and letting it percolate through your heart and soul on the way home. At the end of a half term for the seniors, I get in scones, jam and cream, right? And there were 20 boys sitting around the table today in this class that I had trouble with actually during last week. But out of the 20, how many said thank you?
4.
2 fellas said thank you. Okay? So Christ defines us well when he says human ingratitude.
Yes.
You know? And the boy who couldn't see the beauty in nature in Glendalough, just a lack of gratitude. And today I was playing a board game. Again, at the end of the term, I don't do this every day. Right? And one of the tasks that they had to do is to count their blessings.
Yes.
And the first thing we had to do is, sir, what's a blessing? And how do I count my blessings? And I said, well, did you get into bed last night into lovely clean sheets? I did. Had you breakfast this morning? I did. And did you have somebody drive you to school? I did, etc. Are you getting an education? I am. I said less than 15% of people, I said, are at your level of blessing. The rest of the world, especially girls around the world, are not getting an education and the condition of where they live, etc. So I said, you have a lot to be grateful for and a lot to be thankful for. They're your blessings. And he said, aren't you a great footballer? I am, sir. I've got a great left foot. I said, you have indeed. So the education goes on, doesn't it? You know?
Just on that one
Yes.
there in the tabernacles, the loneliness
Yes.
of Jesus in the tabernacle.
Correct.
I remember after John died, now one day I was having this discussion, let's put it mildly, with Jesus, and I was saying, but I'm so lonely, why is this happening? And I said, you know, I was doing my woes ode to Jesus at the back of the garden, as you know, down in the, you know, that little chair. And Jesus said to me, I thought Jesus would have great sympathy for me. You know what he said to me? Don't you think I'm lonely in the tabernacle? I said, wow, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
And that speaks volume and then
Thank you,
about
Jesus.
that. And that was a gift,
It was a gift.
right? Before she saw it as a gift, it was a cross
that's
or,
right.
or a suffering.
Yes,
And then Jesus turned it into a gift.
yes.
And how many times during our day do we experience certain things, and we must, now in the divine will, we have to say, why is Jesus gifting me with this?
Indeed.
Is it his experience of humanity, being ungrateful or whatever it may be? So it's a joy, and that's why St. Paul probably says we need only, if we're going to boast about anything, let's boast about the cross, isn't it?
And now in the divine well, we can visit Jesus in the tabernacle.
Correct.
Every day, every time, every
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Every act that we do,
Yeah.
we visit Jesus in the tabernacle.
Sure.
And we're with him,
Indeed.
in him.
Indeed. Can I just, guys, can you see the divine will prayer there at the end? Can you spot the prayer? The last couple of lines.
In this paragraph, is it?
Yes.
Thanks, Rose.
Okay.
Nice,
Okay.
nice.
Pictures with the
Oh, I
chains
want to
that
bind
keep
Yes.
you
We
bound.
want to bind our creatures
Okay.
with
Okay.
Chains
chains.
that keep each other
bound.
company, and you will
That's
help
right.
me to extend the chains in order to bind all hearts to my Lord.
Isn't that
Yeah.
lovely?
Yes, yes.
So we can make that, if anybody is ever collecting the prayers that are coming off
Book.
these pages, that's one of them anyway. So Eileen, we can continue whenever you're ready.
After this, I thought to myself, how few are the things that are known about Jesus, while he has done so much. Why did he speak so little about all that my Jesus did and suffered? And Jesus coming back at it, my daughter, everyone is stingy with me, even the good. How many stinginess that is they have towards me, how many restrictions, how many things they do not manifest of that which I tell them and which they comprehend about me. And you, how many times are you not stingy with me? Each time you either do not write what I tell you or do not manifest it. It is an act of stinginess towards me, because each additional knowledge that you acquire about me, that one acquires about me, is one more glory, one more love that I receive from creatures. Therefore, be attentive and more generous with me, and I will be more generous with you.
Wonderful. And I wish I could delay on it, and because it's just so rich again. But just to say that ignorance is now inexcusable. That we have a revealing God who is jumping out of his divine skin to tell us who he is, in nature and in these revelations and scripture and sacrament, etc., etc. So there's really no excuse not to know him, and if we don't know him, it should intensify the efforts or the energy to get to know him.
I'm just very annoyed that the pupils in your school are very blessed, because 2 weeks ago my son said to me, "Mum, you're so lucky that you were taught religion in school." And I said, "But weren't you?" And he said, "No, our religion class was a DOS class." And in the other two schools that my other two kids went to, both of them learned every religion under the sun except their own. So that age group up into their 30s and probably older have no teaching or formation whatsoever.
Sure, it's a huge issue. Huge issue, and all I can say is I know that that's the reality, Mary.
So it just depends really on the teacher.
Unfortunately, and on their faith, yeah. You know, anyway, I won't say any more. I can't. Okay. This might go out onto the internet. Yeah. So I just want to because each additional knowledge that one acquires about me is one more glory. So as we incrementally, bit by bit, crumb by crumb, increase our knowledge of Jesus, it's one more glory, one more love that I receive from creatures. Therefore, and he's given us the answer, how do we add glory to you? And how do we increase the love? Be attentive and more generous with me, and I will be more generous with you. Okay? And of course, then it speaks volumes about our study days, that we're making huge leaps forward, not just little steps, huge steps forward. And that's why the asking of the questions now is making us think in a different way. Your cognitive skills and mechanisms are being operated at a deeper level. And so your knowledge is going to be deeper, and your glory is going to be deeper, and the love is going to be deeper. So Marguerite is going to take up the reading for November the 4th. In your own time, Marguerite. There's no hurry. Now, just while Marguerite is going to be set up there, we're going to see the word fiat now here. And I have a little printout for you there from this book here. I didn't realize how long I have it. It's from William Johnson. Christian Mysticism Today, and I was 24. I had the date here, 22nd of the 7th, 84, when I picked this up in Cork, and my first address is on it. And there's a little explanation about the Blessed Virgin fiat, Mary's fiat in this. Now, Mary's fiat is not mentioned here directly, but there's a little reading there for you to read later on in your own time over the week, over the next few days. All right, Marguerite.
Okay, I don't know what this is. Okay, November the 4th, 1921. The reason why God used the word fiat in creation. Sanctity in the creature must be between her and Jesus. Jesus giving his life and communicating his sanctity to her as her faithful companion.
The creature receiving it as his faithful and inseparable companion. I felt all identified with my Jesus, and as he came, I flung myself into his arms, abandoning myself completely in him, as in my own centre. I felt an irresistible force to stay in his arms, and my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, this is the Creator, the creature, searching for the bosom of her Creator, in order to rest in his arms. It is her duty to come into the arms of your Creator,
to rest at that bosom from which you came out. In fact, you must know that many electric wires of communication and union pass between creature and creator, which render her almost inseparable from me, provided that she is not withdrawn from my will. Because withdrawing is nothing other than snapping the wires of communication and breaking the union. The life of the Creator, more than electricity, flows within the creature, and she flows within me. My life is spread within the creature. In creating her, I linked my wisdom to her intelligence, so that her intelligence might be nothing but the reflection of mine. And if man reaches such great extent with his science as to give of the incredible, it is because the reflection of mine is reflected in him, in his. If his eye is animated by a light, it is nothing other than the reflection of my eternal light being reflected in his eye.
Very good. Can I just very quickly, and time is moving on, so just again in keeping with the way that I want to work tonight, here are some questions, and I'm just going to run through them now myself just to save time. What is our duty? The answers are here. It is our duty, fourth line down, it is our duty to come into the arms of the Creator, to rest in that bosom from which you came out. What must we know, and what is the effect of this knowing, and on what condition? You must know that many electrical wires of communication and union pass between creature and creator. So he's using the modern, this must have been new to the world, electric wire, so he's using it in order to communicate the intimacy between creature and creator, which render her almost inseparable from me, provided she has not withdrawn, and this is the condition, provided she has not withdrawn from my will. Right? Because withdrawing is nothing other than snapping these same wires of communication and breaking the union. What does the life of the creature, of the Creator, do within the soul? The life of the Creator, more than electricity, flows within the creature, and she flows within me. My life is spread within the creature. So the answers are right in front of us, so we can very easy to find the questions then for which these are the answers. And I might just finish up. Why did Jesus link wisdom and intelligence? So the answer that would be very hard to answer, only that the answer is right in front of us now. So in creating her, I linked my wisdom to her intelligence, so that her intelligence might be nothing but the reflection on mine. And if man reaches such great extent with his science as to give of the incredible, it is because the reflection of mine is reflected in his. So that's religion and science, this wonderful alliance between religion and science. There should be no disconnect. And who was it said that, is it John Paul II or Einstein? I was trying to look it up today and my computer wouldn't work. He says that science needs religion so that it doesn't become absolutist, as the absolute answer to everything. And religion needs science so that religion doesn't become fundamentalist. So they both need each other. I think it's John Paul II, he was either quoting somebody else, but he could see the lovely alliance between science and religion. And many of our former scientists, and even modern day scientists, have been people of faith. You know, our own Robert Boyle from Waterford and Cork, who came up with Boyle's Law. He was a pastor, Protestant rector, I think, and so many of them were people of faith anyway. Is that okay? So can you see what I'm saying? The answers are here. So being able to see how do I weave a question? If this is the answer, what's the question? All right. So let's move on down through who's reading there? Marguerite.
Me. Among ourselves, three divine persons, we had no need to speak in order to understand one another. However, in the creation, I wanted to use the word, so I said fiat,
and things were made. To this fiat I bound and gave the power that creatures might have the word in order to understand one another. Therefore, human voices also are linked to my first word, as though by an electric wire, and from it all other words descend. And as I created man, I breathed on him with my breath, infusing life in him. But in this life I infused in him, I placed my whole being, according to what human capacity was able to contain. But I placed everything in him. There was nothing of my own which I did not share with him. See, even his breath is a reflection of my breath, with which I gave him continuous life, while his breath is reflected in me, and I feel it continuously within me.
Okay, I'm just going to give you two scripture references there. Genesis 2:7 and Psalm 39. Psalm 39, not 39. 2:7. Genesis 2:7. You can look those up later on. And okay, and read on there, please.
See then how many relations there are between myself and the creature. This is why I love her so much, because I look at her as a birth from me, exclusively mine. And then how did I ennoble the will of man? I linked it with mine, giving it all my prerogatives. I made it free, just like mine. And if to the body I had given too little lights, limited and circumscribed, which started from my eternal light, the human will I made all eyes. Therefore, as many acts as the human will forms, so many eyes can it say it possesses. It looks to the right, to the left, to the back, to the front. And if the human life is not emanated by my will, it will do nothing good. In creating it, I said to it, you will be my sister on earth. My will from heaven will emanate yours. We will be in continuous reflections. And whatever I will do, you will do as well. I by nature, and you by the grace of my continuous reflections. I will follow you like a shadow. I will never leave you.
And again, isn't that an absolutely amazing insight? It reminds me of Augustine's City of God, you know, that when we're fused with the Lord, then we create a beautiful heaven on earth. And obviously then the Our Father, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Psalm 39 again, Francis has at that spot there at the end of that. The word reflections, is it causing anybody any concern, or would anyone like to unpack it, or these continuous reflections?
And we're fused in the will of God.
Yeah.
Everything we do is a reflection of Jesus.
Yeah.
And because we're made in his image and likeness.
Correct, yeah. Correct. Thank you for that. And I love the last, this covenant that the Lord never backs down from. I will never leave you. I will follow you like a shadow. And what's her name?
What struck me when I was reading beforehand was it looks to the right, to the left, to the back, to the front. And to me, that was we were given the power to reason things. Whereas animals aren't given that power.
Okay.
We have been given the power to look at things from the front or the back.
Correct. And
From
there's
different aspects.
Correct, Marguerite. And there's a lot of references there, people, to seeing, see then, and the eyes to do this and the eyes to do that, because obviously these are references to our, as Marguerite is saying, we have this ability for understanding and enlightenment and reason and rational. You know, these are high divine gifts, divine acts. The human being that most, the thinking species par excellence. So it's sad then to see somebody who is spiritually blind, like my student who couldn't see the beauty, and that's a great sadness. I mean, I'd be sad for him going forward into the future that he would have not got that light within him, you know, but maybe you know, again, through our fusing, that we will bring him back to the Lord.
Yeah.
And there's one big thing, that
yeah.
if the human life is not activated or animated
Animated,
by
yeah.
my will, it will do nothing good.
Yes.
Correct,
So it's a big
correct, correct.
warning to us.
Surely.
Remain in,
And so
stay
we're
in the
constantly looking at a culture of death around us, you know, and there's nothing good coming from a lot of the things that we see around us. So again, it's speaks volumes about our role and our duty in the divine will to bring the good to the world. And you can finish up there then, Marguerite, please. My only purpose.
My only purpose is creating the creature, was that he would do my will in everything. But with this, I wanted to bring into existence new births of myself. I wanted to make of him a prodigious portent, worthy of me, and in everything similar to me. But alas, the human will was going to be the first to set itself against me.
Okay, yeah, that's a very strong sentence there. The human will was going to be the first to set itself against me. And so that's the story of the human being, isn't it? Mankind. The light created the world and we rejected the light. And again he starts this paragraph with, take a look, Marguerite.
Take a look, all things are done between two. You have eyes, but if you did not have an external light which illuminates you, you could not see. You have hands, but if you did not have the necessary things with which to do your work, you would do nothing, and so on with the rest. Now, this is how I want sanctity in the creature, between her and me, between the two of us, I on one side, she on the other. I giving my own life and communicating my sanctity to her as her faithful companion.
So watch this very carefully now. You now have this secret to the success of sanctity between her and me, the two of us, I on one side and she on the other. And there's this, not so much a seesaw, but a connection between my sanctity and his companionship in my life, I giving my own life and communicating my sanctity to her as her faithful companion.
She receiving it as my faithful and inseparable companion. In this way, she would be the eyes that sees, and I the sun that gives her light. She is the mouth, and I the word. She is the hands, and I the one who administers the work to let her operate. She the foot, and I the step. She the heart, and I the heartbeat. But do you know who forms this sanctity? My will alone is that which maintains the purpose of creation in order. The sanctity in my will is that which maintains perfect balance between creatures and Creator. These are the true images which came out of me.
Beautiful. So just spend a minute just looking at the balance, the secret to, or the description or definition of the sanctity. And you are the eye, Jesus is the light. You are the mouth, he is the word. You are the hands, he is administrator of the work. You are the foot, and Jesus is the step. You are the heart, and Jesus is the heartbeat. What prayer comes to mind?
St. Patrick's.
Saint?
St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's best place? In what way?
Or fused with.
Fuse, okay. And what about the prayer of Saint Teresa of Avila? Christ has no body now but mine, no hands on earth, okay, etc. No feet, no eyes, etc. You know, so it's very powerful too. And I want you also to notice that the will is a who. You know, this is the person. That the divine will is a person. Now, just in case I'm examining the unexamined assumptions, you know, and you know, there's also the reference that, you know, when the human being is connected with God, then he has a good relationship with the planet. But when we disconnect, which is coming through in these readings and these revelations, from our connection with God, we also start destroying our planet. You know, we don't see it as something sacred, because we don't see the Lord keeping it going, being the source of the being of all that is, then, you know, we'll have no regard for the sanctity of the planet. Now, it's going on to 20 to 9, so we might stop there. I had ambitions to get a lot more done, but we did a lot tonight.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So, can I have somebody to read from the 8th of November? And of course, we're coming back. We have a midterm break next week, and we're back on the 7th.
Yes.
7th of November, is it?
Yeah.
Imagine that, we're nearly back on the day that we're reading this. This is the 9th, this is the 8th.
Yeah.
So we're back on the 7th of November. Who take up that reference, please?
I good.
Okay, that's Dolores. And then on the November the 12th, anybody who is not after reading it would like to, but there's no pressure whatsoever. If you'd like to read the 12th, it's just reading it, you don't have to do a teaching. But you might consider, let's say, the questions that you might like to compose from it. Kathy, you said, is it Kathy? Have you? So we'll get the 12th there, Kathy. And now we rarely get beyond 4, unfortunately. Francis will murder me. We're not going fast enough. November the 16th. Can I just have a third there? Is it Mary, is it? Okay. And if we get maybe just one more than November, we try to push it out to get it before done. Okay, I'm going to put a net down. Who's going to? Okay, I'll put a net down. She'll more than me. Guys, thanks a million.
Now, a couple of things, admin things, can I do admin things?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please.
Some housework.
Housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
So on the housekeeping, right, Francis intends starting volume 1 again in the early new year, maybe on the 3rd. I'll tap on the door for Francis to come and join us.